Hello, welcome to this video. Again, this is another video I'm doing recently on CAPsMAN, but in this one I wanted to try and solve a problem which I didn't know an easy way to do initially. It's a feature which I believe was in the older version of CAPsMAN, pre-AC Wave 2, which all to do with client isolation. So this is leading on from the other videos I've done. So I've done a few now where we kind of go through the different stages of setting all these different scenarios with the CAPsMAN up, and then the one I've done most recently, which interestingly enough got a mention on a MikroTik video, which I was very shocked and very pleased about, but was the full setup end to end. So as you can see here, this is the configuration which I've done. So I'm going to be using this configuration as it was left at the last video, so check that one out. I'll put a link just here for you now. Yeah, check that one out first if you want to get to this state. But what I want to do is, because I've got these two VLANs, I've got this one for what I'm calling my corporate SSID, and then one for my guest one. Now the guest one, as you would imagine, is for guests. This is for people that you don't necessarily know or necessarily trust, but you are providing them some form of network access, primarily internet access. So client A and client B connect, but you don't know who these clients are, and you don't want to be responsible for any malicious activity that may happen between them. You are just providing them bog standard access to the internet, and that may be, filtered and controlled by a firewall or something else, but really you want to control the access between the two clients which are connected to this SSID. Now in the older CAPsMAN, if you didn't enable something called local forwarding, your traffic which from your access point was automatically tunneled back to your controller. This is no longer a feature. It's gone back to how a lot of traditional access points work, where you actually have a VLAN tag on the interface of the access point, which is then corresponds to one on the switch, which is then trunked all the way back to your controller or your router or wherever you're providing the network access. So that's all well and good, that works, that's fine, that's not a problem. But the problem is now is not only can you've got lots of clients within this layer 2 domain, so they're not even going to touch your router or your controller, so you can't do any sort of firewalling between those clients because it's all done based on MAC address, because everything inside its broadcast domain is going to talk to each other. The other issue you've got is on these you've got dual interfaces. So client A connects to 2.4, client B connects to 5 gig. They can then, route within, or not route, but they can communicate within the HAP itself, the CAP itself rather, so the access point itself. So that traffic never even leaves to go to the router. So then you've got issues of the people on the same access. It's going to be talking on layer 2. You've got talking between the different interfaces on here before it even gets to the router. So to combat this, my plan is, and the idea I have, is to generate basically what we had before using VXLAN. Now VXLAN is basically a layer 2 tunnel which sits over the top of layer 3. There are other alternatives we could have used. We could have used MikroTik's own Ethernet over IP, but I have had some issues with that in the past in terms of it's not as scalable. It's MikroTik proprietary, so you can't interact with other vendors. Whereas VXLAN it supports multiple, Cisco, Juniper, all the rest of them. It traverses NAT well. It has hardware offload, so it's not as intensive on your CPU. You can use IPsec on it. As mentioned, it works with other vendors. It has VLAN support, and the MTU fragmentation is easy to tune because it adds, I think, about 50 bits onto the front of the packet. So you just need to compensate for that when you set your MTU of your VXLAN interface. So this is what we're going to try and achieve. we're going to go, if I go back to my diagram, so instead of the traffic coming from the client to the SSID being tagged all the way through my network here and potentially going from onto another client on the same network, what we're going to do is we're going to create, instead of using VLAN 30, we're going to create a VXLAN between our MikroTik controller and each of the access points. And then so the traffic's actually going to go into there, and it's going to go across, technically it's going to go across VLAN 10, which is my management, which is what the tunnel is going to run across. But it's effectively a layer 2 tunnel, so it's like having a VLAN tagged all the way through. But what we're going to do is remove that VLAN tag onto the switch and onto the switch this side, so there's no way it can be using that VLAN anymore. And then we'll show you that we have the internet. Now, so what I wanted is, as well as the other reason for choosing VXLAN, is I want something that I can easily, is easily scalable, is easily configurable, and replicating, easy to replicate. So in the video when I made this config originally, I configured one access point, then I exported the config, and then I installed it onto here. Now it gets its management IP dynamically. Everything else is done controlled by the CAPsMAN, so I didn't actually, apart from logging in to set a password, I didn't actually need to touch this in terms of configuration. So I wanted to be able to do that as if you were to deploy 100 access points. You don't want to be manually going in and configuring, because not only is that takes time, but it's also prone to mistakes. So I wanted a solution where I can do that, whereas I can set up the VXLAN's VTP IOP of the controller, and then on here I just need to specify the IPs of here, so all the configuration is again done in here. So I can literally export this, copy and paste it onto my other APs, and I'll demonstrate that as we go. So let's get going. So yeah, a bit of a longer intro on that one. I just wanted to try and explain my thinking. Now, this isn't by no means the best solution. It's a solution which I've come up with, and I'm hoping to generate a bit of discussion. While I'm on that subject, I'll just quickly talk about some changes I've made to my channel recently. So I've added a membership option, 2 different levels. Basically, I wanted to try, and this is a way that I can have a bit more of an interaction space. So we've got some the level 1, we'll get some member only polls to do some sort of what option do you think, or should we try this, try that. But then I've also got this other level 2 where we'll do some, the plan is I'd like to do some live streams and have some live chats going. In the past, live streams I've tried to do were temperamental, and it was really hard to initially to do them, and to not have any technical problems, but also to keep up with any of the comments. So another option I tried, I would pre-record, and then I would upload that, and then I could respond to comments as they came in. But then there were some questions people had where they wanted to actually show them something, and I couldn't do that. So I thought, well, this way we can have a bit more of a smaller audience necessarily, and then we can have a bit more of a discussion. We can work through, if someone's got a particular problem and they want it to work through, we can perhaps try that, or if we want to show a particular configuration live, and then I can try and answer the questions as we go. So okay, back to our MikroTik. So here's my, as I mentioned, the router. This is going to be my CAPsMAN controller. As you can see, I've got my 2 access points configured, running, and we've got 2 different SSIDs. So I've, as I mentioned in the last video, separated what I'm calling my corporate between my 2 and 5G interfaces, but the guest is just the same on all of them. The guest is a sub interface of the primary one, so it has no no channels or channel width information, because that's takes it from its primary there. And I do currently have a single client, which is my Raspberry Pi, which is connected on the CAP1 Wi-Fi 1. So that's my AP1 5 gig. No, 2. 1 must be One must be my 2.4. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is all done using VLANs on the SSIDs. As you can see, I've got 20 and 30, which is my corporate, and my guest, which is trunks to my switch. I have 10 as my management, which again is trunk to my switch. The switch is just a Cisco. There's nothing fancy on there. It's just literally trunk ports on the MikroTik side, the router side, and the 2 access point side. I can show you the access points as well here. They're just, there we go, controlled by my CAPsMAN server. And again on here I have a bridge which has my VLANs configured 10, 20, 30 all tagged. The only IP address I have is on my VLAN 10, which is a DHCP client for its management, and these are dynamically added by the SSIDs because we specify back in our controller, we specify our under a Datapath is going to tell the AP which VLAN to tag the traffic, whether it's guest or corporate. Okay, so hopefully that's all fairly straightforward. So we're not going to make too many changes, but what I will firstly do is demonstrate my, let's jump on my Raspberry Pi. Now I've got this connected to my MikroTik 2G at the moment. So if I do the same with my machine I'm on now, there you go. As you can see, that's the IP that I'm on, because it would be the only other client on there. I'm doing IP config. Yeah, 199. So as you can see, my Raspberry Pi can ping me, which is fine because that's my corporate one. So I'm going to allow that to happen. Let's go on our guest. We connect, and then we'll do the same on my Raspberry Pi. Connect. Let's just find my IP of here. 32.4. 10.0.3254. So I can ping. So this is what I want to be blocking. Now if we jump back on our MikroTik and we go to our controller, we look under Wi-Fi, under registrations. So we're currently both on the same access point and the same network. Okay, so this is a quick and easy fix. This has a feature already in it, which is called, we go to Datapath, guest. We need to simply enable client isolation. Now client isolation is going to work between all the traffic which is on the same, connected to the same interface on the same access point, which is great for us because we were, unless we've changed now. See, now I've moved off and now I've jumped into the 5G, so I'm still going to be pinging. So that would have worked if I was still on the same, but as you made a change, it would have kicked me off and jumped back on again. So I'm going to do something to help us test this without having to hope that we get on the right interface. So I'm going to call my first one, this is going to be 01, and this is my 2G. Okay, let's do the same for the 5G. So now, when we look at our available networks, guest will disappear once that sorts itself out. There we go. So let's connect to back to the same one on both. So let's just, might as well do this one. It's already connected. So guest 02 5G, and back on my Pi, let's go to guest 2 5G. Connect. Okay, I'll probably change IP addresses as well. No, we've still got the same IP address there. As you can see now, I'm no longer pingable. However, if I go to 02 2G. There we go. So now on 2G, I can now ping it because I'm actually on same access point, but I'm now on this one's on the 2G interface and this one's on the 5G interface. So now we can talk between each other. So that client isolation is only going to work when we're on that same actual interface. So any one of these, if we're on the same one together, that client isolation is now going to block that. So that's number one. That's the first thing we need to do. Now let's control our traffic between our two interfaces on the same network. As you noticed, I've not even touched the VXLAN yet, so that bit's coming. But we're going to work backwards from the access point. So we can now go into which AP was I connected to? So I was on O2 for these two. So let's jump on O2. So I'll be connecting to this one. So what I'm going to now do is, because we're using a bridge, and as I mentioned before, it's all going to be layer 2 traffic at this point. We can use this bridge filter, which works very much like your firewall rule. We've got these the input, forward, and output chains. So we're going to use the forward chain, and we're basically going to say interfaces. Anything coming in from our secondary interfaces, which is our guest, we're on a block. But before we do that, you'll notice that this is 9 and 10. Now the reason that's 9 and 10 is because I've stopped and started this service several times when I was building it and testing it and stuff. So every time this increments these interfaces because they're dynamically assigned. However, we can prevent that. We can make sure that these are static, because you notice this is 1, 2. But if we open these up, we can't actually change these names as we can on the primary ones. Okay. So in order to do that, we go back into our cap, and then we select this static option here for our secondary interfaces. We apply that. It's going to probably drop my CAPsMAN connection, and then it's going to re-establish. Okay, so 1 and 2 are back up, and now by default when you do that, it's going to jump these up to 11 and 12. But if I was to turn CAPsMAN on and off again, it would give them back 11 and 12 every time. And as you can see, the D is now gone, so no longer dynamic. It's now create them as static interfaces, and I can rename them. So I could call it Wi-Fi 1 guest, but we don't need to really identify these at any point other than this. And by using the default here, as I mentioned before, I want to be able to export this config and upload it. So what we can do is we'll just use because it will become 11 and 12 and all the other ones it does as well. So we're just going to drop anything from coming in from 11 going to 12. So coming in from our 2.4 gig interface going to our 5 gig interface, action is just going to be drop. Okay, and now we can do the reverse of that. However, you'll probably find the reverse doesn't work anyway, because the return traffic would be getting blocked anyway, but it's just good to be sure. Oops. Action drop. Okay, so now let's just test that out. So let's just make sure I'm on the right networks on both. So this is the 2G one on access point 2. And we're on, as you can see, something stopped pinging. Yep, and I'm on the 2G one here. So now we can no longer ping between our different interfaces on the same access point. So now our next step down is we're going to jump to 2 different access points. So this one was on 2. I'm going to set it to get it onto 1. Obviously, I changed the names all back once it's all set up. You wouldn't have all these different names, but we just want to confirm which ones we're connecting to. Make sure that connects. Cool. So there we go. And now I'm still on. And I'm on 2 and 1, as you can see. So I'm on 2 different access points, on 2 different interfaces as well. And now my pings are now happening again. Okay. So now we need to fix this problem. what we can do is use the VXLAN for this part. Now what I'm going to do is configure it on the router first. Okay, we go to interfaces, VXLAN, add one. I'm just going to call this, I'm going to use the same as I did for the same as I was using for the VLAN ID 30. I'll just call it guest. So it looks very much like VLAN 30 guest, which is what I named the other one, but it's VXLAN. Changed it VNI, so this is equivalent to like a VLAN ID. But whereas VLANs, you only have 4095 or 94 to use. We've got significantly more. I can't remember the number, but it's a vastly larger number than that. So we've got lots more options to use. And we leave everything else apart from, I'm going to set this MTU. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we lose about 50 for the header, so we'll drop that down to 1450. We'll leave everything as we want. Hardware offload set there. Okay, so there's our single VXLAN. So unlike doing like if it was a GRE tunnel, you would have point A and point B, and it'd be point to point. Whereas at the moment, we're going to create one VX and VXLAN interface, and we're going to have each of these VTEPs for our access points. So we select we've only got the one interface with the only one VXLAN interface, and we'll put the IP address of my two access points. 199, so they're my two. They are getting those dynamically, but what I would also probably do if I wasn't going to set them statically once they were up and running is going to IP DHCP server, find the two leases there, and just say make static, so they wouldn't change, and then I could name them as well if I wanted to. Oh, sorry, not that one. That's 20.1. Make that one static. Okay. Okay, so that's that side done. As you can see, it's running, but it's not up at the moment. So we'll jump onto that 0.2 one first of all. This is going to be the one I'm going to configure, and then what I'm going to do is I'll export this config and basically wipe the other one and reinstall it without having to do the changes twice. So we'll focus on this access point for now. So we've got interfaces again, VXLAN, and this time we're going to create one, mirror the settings as we've just done. So 30 guest, the VNI is going to be 30, and we set that MTU to 1450. And our VTP, we select that again. 10.1 is my IP of my controller. Okay, so this one should come up. We look in our database and see, there we go, and that'll be the MAC address of my controller. There we go, there we go. So that should be good to go, ready to use. So what we're now going to do is sort out our VLANs. So we've got our VXLAN up and running. So we open up our bridge. We're going to remove that VLAN 30. It's going to go from basically this is our trunk port to our switch. So what we want to do is add the VXLAN as an interface into here. So we treat it as an actual physical interface. We go to VLAN, and then we're going to say tagged only. Okay, and then we go back to VLANs, and what we're going to do is add one now for 30 to its own profile, and we're going to tag it on the bridge and on the VXLAN only. So no actual physical interfaces, so it's not going to be trunked to that switch anymore. It's literally just going to be on these, always on the bridge, but then always onto the guest. And there we go, sorts that out. So we now got one for 10, because I had a separate one for 10 because I had an untagged port for the machine that I'm on connected to port 2. And then I had originally 20 and 30 were basically my trunks going to my Cisco switch, but I can now remove that. So now 30 is not trunked outside of this MikroTik onto any switches. So now what we need to do is go onto our access point again and do pretty much the same. We go into our bridge. As you can see, I've got these, as I mentioned before, these are dynamically added because of the SSID. We can now take off 30. We don't want that tagged on the uplink port anymore. But now we can add our VXLAN. Did I add or did I just change? I did add, didn't I? VXLAN. VLAN is going to be tagged only again. Okay. Now we just need to add a separate profile now again for the VLAN 30. We're going to tag it on the bridge and on the VXLAN. There we go. So now let's confirm that we've got our access still working. So let's jump on to, oh, I'm already on that. Let's disconnect. And then let's go for the 2G one. Where's 2? Alright, so connected. Let's just confirm my IP address. Same IP. Make sure I can ping 10.0.30.1 the gateway. Okay, cool. And then we can just see that as well on our bridge, back on our controller. Go to hosts, sort by interface, and then if we look at my MAC address for my Wi-Fi is 1688. It starts with. There we go. We're now on the VXLAN interface and connecting to that's the remote IP of the access point. So now, in order for us to test now between access point to access point, I'm going to go back to the CAP2, which is the one I've done all the configuration of. I'll go to open up a terminal. I'm going to export. I'll say show sensitive because I want to capture the IP, if any passwords other than the admin password, which won't carry across. And then I will give it a name. I'll call it CAPconfig ISO for isolation. Okay, then we look at our files. There it is there. Just close these down and drag that onto the desktop. Cool. And now I'm going to open up this one, which we haven't made any changes to. We'll just drag and drop across. Is that uploaded? Yep, there it is. And now I just go to system, restart configuration, no default configuration, and then run that, effectively that script, that configuration afterwards. Reset that. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, it won't set the password, so I'll have to go in and do that. Okay. Okay, this is actually a good point which I can show you. If you do ever do this and you've reset stuff and you find you're not getting a connection to CAPsMAN, the issue is going to be, or likely to be, to the certificate. So if we open up here, we've got no certificate in here, but we should be requesting one. So the easiest thing to do, just to disable it, go into your controller, open up certificates, and then you'll find the one for that access point, and it's its MAC address, as you can see. So our MAC address for this one ends 5A, starts 78. There we are, 785A. Just remove it. Go back onto your CAP, enable, apply, and then it should request a certificate. You get a new one come in. There we go, and everything's going to start working, and it's going to just create a new one. So yeah, if there's an old certificate on here it's trying to use, because it will recognize the MAC address that it's requesting, and yeah, you just get yourself, you'll find yourself chasing your tail for a long time until you figure that one out. So a little tip there for you. So yeah, now we're all back up and running. Let's look at our interfaces. We'll have our VXLAN set on here. There we go. As I mentioned, there's no other, this is all the same configuration as the other one, which is why I like this setup. It means we haven't got to log in and we've got to check, make sure we get, set up a specific IPs for every single tunnel that we're going to create. It's all fairly dynamic. With the only place we'll need to set the IPs is on this end. So now we can test our, firstly we'll test using our newly configured AP when that comes on. So let's jump onto that one. Just firstly make sure we can connect. We are connected and we still can ping the gateway. Good. Now let's put our Pi onto, so we're on 01 onto the 5. No, we want to be, sorry, onto the, we want to be back up still on 02. So we want to be on different access points, don't we? So 01 and this one's going to be 02. So my IP address should still be the same. Oh, it's gone to 248 now, which is fine. Let's go see if we can ping 248. There we go. We can't ping. And then we'll just do the same this side. ifconfig, because we're on Linux. 253 ping 10.0.30.253. There we go. So we now are fully isolated across our interfaces, our access points, and the same interfaces, different interfaces on the same access point and different access points now as well. So fully separated, segregated, but yet we can still, I can still ping the internet. There we go. If I do a trace route, there we go. So it goes to my controller, and this means that now between my controller and my access point, we could be crossing different networks. We could be crossing different more VLANs almost, as long as the endpoint A and B can talk to each other and have communication. It will establish that VXLAN across it. So the idea is that we could then deploy these in other networks. We could tunnel we could have all sorts of ways of routing our traffic back to our controller. You could even run this over the public internet if you wanted to, but then I would highly recommend that you do that within some sort of IPsec encryption or tunnel. So it's effectively like, if anyone's ever used mobility control, I think they call it in Cisco, where your traffic is SSID, goes from client to SSID, and then that is tunneled all the way back to your controller. So you could have a central controller within your data center somewhere in your corporate network, and then you could have all these remote sites that you could then stick either a corporate or a non-corporate access point SSID on, and then your traffic will just get passed across whatever network it's traversing, providing the two ends talk to one another. And it's also similar to, if you've ever used Meraki. Meraki have a feature called DHCP LAN, I think it is. Whereas instead of selecting your own VLAN ID or your own network, it's a built-in feature, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to give you an IP address within your client, an IP address within the 10/8, so huge, any random IP address, but then your traffic is all tunneled back via the Meraki cloud, and then before it enters the internet. So you will be sharing a public internet IP with multiple clients, but you won't talk to them, and it's all natted behind that IP. So, or you're basically just going to get one-to-one internet access, and it doesn't matter as long as that AP has connectivity to the Meraki cloud, which it needs anyway to work. You don't need to worry about setting up networks. So hopefully that's somewhat clearer. But like I say, this is a solution I found to a problem. So if anyone else out there has the same issue and has tried other things, if I've done something that shouldn't work or does work or not sure why it works, or I've done something incorrect, then please let me know. As I mentioned, I came up with this solution and it worked pretty well, but I'm always up for finding if there's other ways of doing stuff. So yeah, well, thanks for watching. Yeah, as I mentioned, I've got now that membership option now, so if anyone's interested in that, hopefully we can get a bit, because I do get a lot of comments now, which is great. I love the fact that people are watching this stuff and is useful. But then I do get requests for certain things, and sometimes I just don't have the capacity as much as I'd like to, because this is just, as I mentioned, a hobby. I have a full-time job, so I have to fit everything out this in around everything else. But yeah, I do try to get back to all the comments. I do try and make the videos that people are asking for, but sometimes it's I have to develop the solution before I can then record it and show you. So it just takes time. But hopefully, maybe if we could do some more intimate sort of live streams, I can get to a lot of these questions and straight away. So anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And then I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.